Have you ever walked out of a technical interview thinking, I actually know this stuff, so why did I actually freeze? Or even worse, you actually leave and you realize that you solved the problem that they presented to you just in your head. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't actually fail technical interviews because they are not skilled. They fail because they prepare the wrong way. And later in this video, I'm actually going to show you one of the preparation steps that you can actually take to make sure that the interviewers trust that you know some of the things that you're talking about. Top of the morning, everyone. My name is Tshidi and I'm back with another video. Today, I'm breaking down exactly how to prepare for a technical skills-based interview. So you can actually walk into that interview calm, clear, and ready to actually prove that you can do what you say you can. Because right now, companies are actually hiring very carefully, and technical interviews are one of the quickest ways to actually filter out some of the candidates. By the end of this video, guys, you'll know a few things. Number one is you'll know what technical interviews are actually trying to test. Number two, how to prepare in a way that actually matches the role that you're actually interviewing for. And then number three, how to communicate your thinking so that you actually score a few points with your interviewers. Technical interviews are normally testing 4 specific elements. Number one is, can you solve the problem in a structured way? Number two, can you explain your thinking clearly before you actually get to the answer? Number three, can you work with constraints, with any trade-offs and incomplete information? And then the fourth one is, can you do the job they actually need you to be doing for this particular company? So if you remember nothing else, guys, please try and remember this. You are being scored on your process, not just the final answer that you actually have got. And in this chapter, I'll show you exactly how to prepare for the exact type of technical interviews that you might be walking into, because yes, there are different types of interviews to think about. The first thing you need to actually do is obviously try and identify the technical interview that you need to prepare for. And there's nothing wrong with asking a recruiter. Technical interviews are not one size fits all. If you prepare for the wrong format, you'll actually feel confident right up until you actually now faced with that particular technical interview. And here are some common types of technical interviews to actually prepare for. Number one, which is mostly for technical guys in the developer space, which is live coding or problem solving. This is your algorithms, your data structures, your coding exercises, and sometimes even on a shared editor where they actually see you go through the process, and sometimes on a platform. You know, what they want to see is actually structured thinking, clean code, edge cases, and how you actually debug when you go through some of these coding exercises. The second one that you could actually have sometimes is actually a take-home exercise. In this one, they normally give you an assignment for you to actually build a small project or feature over a couple of hours or a couple of days. What they want to see is the code quality, the decisions that you've actually taken, documentation, which is very important, and whether you can actually deliver like you would actually on that particular job if they gave you the role. The third one is system design or architecture. This is where they actually ask you design a scalable chat app or design a scalable whatever, and suddenly you actually forget that the internet exists. You know, what they want is high-level thinking, they want trade-offs, they want bottlenecks, and they want clarity. And if somebody's watching you, you have to make sure that you speak out loud as you do all this particular piece of work. And then for non-developers is a technical deep dive into your past work, where they actually focus into something that is either very scientific or very technical into some of the stuff that you've actually done, where they might ask you very technical questions. You know, they go through your CV and they ask you, walk me through this project. You know, what tools did you use? What are the problems that you had with this particular tool? How did you deal with this tool? And they go deeper into that particular topic. What they want here is real experience, ownership, impact, and how you actually think about those. Because in some cases, people put tools and cases that they've done, and when you actually ask them how they debugged or how they dealt with that particular tool, they fail. And then number 5 is very role-specific practical tasks. That's one of the case studies that they might, or that's one of the technical interviews that they might actually take you through. And what they want here is job-ready competence. Are you competent in the role that you said you are competent in? And next, I'm going to show you the role skills map. And that will actually stop you from practicing random things and hoping for the best. And here's how you actually do it. Number 1 is open the job description that you might have had and look for a few things. Number 1 is, what is the language that they're actually talking about? What kind of tools are they speaking about? What are some of the key responsibilities that they want this person to have? What are some of the problems that you think they might want you to solve? And words that keep on repeating. Why are they repeating these particular words? And now that you've actually selected some of these things and you understand some of the four main basic things that I've just spoken about, now you actually need to create a simple map with 3 columns. Column number 1 is must-have skills. What are the must-have skills that they're looking for? They're looking for somebody with workday skills. Yes, that's fantastic. Number 2, nice-to-have skills. What are some of the nice-to-have skills that you need to actually be aware of? And then number 3, proof from your experience. Because you've identified the must-have, you've identified the nice-to-have, now you need to actually add proof to everything that you've actually done. Because here's the thing, if you spend all week just going through puzzles, but the role is actually mainly about building APIs or maintaining systems, you look like somebody who actually studies for the wrong exam. It is very important that you actually prepare proof for each must-have skill, because it's nice to be able to speak about very specific cases. The next thing, guys, is to actually try and create your technical story bank or your interviewer's cheat code. In some cases, you can actually take that, put a few bullet points, paste it next to your camera so that it reminds you of what you actually need to talk about. You need 4 to 6 very strong stories that you can actually reuse for any job interviews that you're actually looking at. Nothing fluffy like I'm passionate about technology. Real stories that actually focus on 1, a problem you faced, 2, what you actually tried, 3, what went wrong, and then 4, how you actually fixed that particular problem. Number 5, what you actually learned, and then number 6, what are the results? Ideally, if you've got numbers or stats that you can actually share, that would be fantastic to be able to share that. And please do not just describe what your team did, because most people tend to forget that the we is not necessarily given the story of what role you play. Even if you're part of a team, you still had a lane, you still had a role that you actually played in that particular responsibility. What is the context? What your role was, what the challenge was, what your approach was, the trade-offs that you guys had, and what were the results. Now that you've actually got your stories right, we will need the skills that actually separates good candidates from great ones. It's not coding faster, it's explaining your thinking. And that technique is actually thinking out loud, the thinking out loud method, which is one of the simplest ones. Most candidates actually go quiet when they're thinking, especially when they're asked something very technical, they tend to go quiet. But interviewers can actually grade silence because they don't know what you're thinking. And here's how you actually think out loud without sounding like you're panicking. First step is restate the problem. So you actually want a function that does X. It needs to actually be able to handle Y constraints. Is that correct? This shows a bit of clarity because you want to make sure that whatever solution you're coming up with, it's making sense for what they've asked you. Step number 2, when you're stuck, don't freeze. Bracket the problem. What you can say is, right now the tricky part is X. I'm going to actually try an option A, and if that fails, I'll try and switch to option C because I think that one will work better because of this. Yeah, okay, let me try that. Let me see what it does. This shows problem solving under pressure. And interviewers also love this because it actually feels like you're working with a real colleague. And you're also showing a bit of clarity, you're showing constraints, you're showing your approach, you're showing your testing, your calm decision making. And one of the best things is if that's how the person that's interviewing you would have solved the same problem, they tend to actually now relate with you. And sometimes they want to try and help you, and you can see when they're helping you with their eyes. Now, let's actually talk practice, because I'll just wing it is not a strategy that actually works when it comes to technical interviews. You have to be prepared for whatever comes your way. Now that we've actually figured out all these things, how do you then prepare to make sure that you're ready for that next case study? Now, if the interview is very soon, here's a very realistic plan. The day you find out about the interview, confirm the format and build your role skills. Go through those role skills that I actually spoke to you guys about. What are the must-haves? What are the nice-to-have? And what are some of the examples of some of the things that you've been able to deliver? Number 2, try and refresh fundamentals, guys. What is core for your role? For software, maybe arrays, strings, hash maps, complexity basics. For marketing specialist, SEO, omni-channels, whatever other platforms that they might have. So make sure that you actually understand what is core to that particular role. And then on the third thing that you need to then do is to try and practice the same format. If it's going to be live coding, practice live coding and try and practice that live. And if you can, please record yourself with a timer. If it's a take home, do a mini take home and practice explaining decisions. One of the nice things that we currently now have, which we didn't have before in the past, is we've got things like Gemini as well as ChatGPT. You can actually let Gemini listen to your thinking as you do the coding. And one of the things that Gemini has got or ChatGPT is that you can actually code and it'll watch what you're actually doing. The next thing that you also need to do is, if it's actually a deep dive into your projects in your past, pick 2 projects from your CV that you can actually prepare to explain. Number 1 is whether you prepared in the architecture, prepare that. Whether you prepared in the decisions, prepare decisions that were taken, by who and why they were taken. The challenges that you actually had in that particular case study or in that particular scenario. The testing to make sure that that project actually succeeds. The results that you actually had and what you have improved if you were faced with that right now. And then lastly, you need to actually do a mock interview with a friend or AI. ChatGPT and Gemini can now actually speak to you and listen to you and actually ask you very difficult technical questions. And I know it's very awkward. It's supposed to be awkward because it's supposed to prepare you for the next thing that you're actually ready for. And then while you're still prepared, the next thing that you need to think about is the weakness days. Look at what you actually struggle with and try and fix that. Not everything, just 2 of your biggest weaknesses or 2 of your biggest weaknesses. Think about how you'll actually answer them. And then try and simulate an interview simulation and setup. Now that you've actually handled the prep, I want to talk to you guys about what you actually do in the interview itself. A few basic things. Start very strong. Smile, greet people. Don't look scared. Clarify before you code if you have to clarify. Clarify before you answer if you're not really sure that that's what they're asking you. Do not rush. Rushing normally creates different issues and creates errors. Communicate trade-offs, make assumptions, share assumptions that you've got. Because one of the things that people tend to forget is that if you're making an assumption, you have to explain that assumption so that the people on the other side can understand why you made that assumption. If there are more than one approach, say it out loud. I could do it this way for speed, but if it actually uses more memory, I'll do this. It allows people to see that you're actually thinking about every problem that you need to try and solve. And if you make a mistake, try and handle that mistake like a professional. And please, of all things that I want you to remember is please do not spiral. They're not expecting perfection. They're actually expecting a bit of composure and a bit of understanding as to what you're trying to do. And ask good questions at the end. I've got a video that speaks about the questions that you can ask. Please ask some great questions. Like, for example, what will success look like in the first 90 days? What are the most common technical challenges that the team is facing right now? Those are some of the common questions that you can actually ask. Now, let's wrap this. I know it's been a long video. The things that we've actually covered is 1, what technical interviews are actually really testing, your process, not just the answer. Number 2, how to identify the interview types so you can actually prepare with focus. Number 3, how to build a role skills map that actually connects to job requirements to prove that you can actually do that job. Number 4, how to actually create a technical story bank so you actually sound experienced and you know exactly what you're actually talking about. Number 5, the think out loud method that actually helps you score points even when you seem very stuck. Because in some cases, sometimes the interviewer will say, okay, have you thought about this? And sometimes it gives you an answer that you might be looking for. And then lastly, a simple prep plan that can actually get you ready without burning out for that particular interview. Here's an action for you guys. Pick up one of the upcoming roles that you might be preparing for, build your role skills map, and write 2 technical stories that you actually might want to focus on to prove that you can actually do the work. Do that before your next application or your next interview, and you'll feel very different in your next interview. If you found these tips helpful, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to share. Until we meet again in the next video, peace.